That's 888-898-2525. Now, here are Phil, Chris, and Pat with tonight's edition of Sports Talk.
All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome into Sports Talk here on the Sports Talk Media Network. Another big Thursday night edition of Sports Talk across the state of South Carolina. Hope you've had a terrific day, and we're going to top it off for you tonight, the best 2 hours of Sports Talk in South Carolina. Your final word in sports every night right here on Sports Talk. Phil Kornblut, Pat Daniel, and Chris Bergen, who I got a chance to see today in person as we met for lunch over in the Florence area as I was heading down to the beach for the high school football coaches clinic. Chris has got basketball tonight, but he'll be joining us from Coastal Carolina. The Chanticleers are in action tonight. Last two home games of the regular season for them, then two games in Arkansas. They play USA, South Alabama tonight. The team that was coached by one Cliff Ellis before he came to Clemson. And Cliff trying to close in on 900 career wins. Not going to get it this year, which means he'll come back next year in his seventh year and get those necessary wins and get to number 900 so he can join his good friend Mike Krzyzewski. Well, he's like, what, over 1,000. So anyway, we've got all that going on. We've got Mike Morgan coming up, his regular spot, 7:05. USC baseball coach Mark Kingston. Gamecocks, like the rest of the power schools, set to open baseball tomorrow afternoon. The Gamecocks against UNC Greensboro. Clemson at home against Indiana. And other teams across the state getting set to open up the regular season in college baseball. We'll talk about the basketball scene as well. South Carolina looking to build on its recent momentum of two straight road wins back home against LSU. And Clemson trying to break the losing streak. Tigers heading up to Louisville. And we got recruiting for you as well. A lot of things happening on the recruiting front. Clemson misses on a major offensive line target. Not a surprise, but Clemson does lose one of its veteran offensive linemen today. Larry Williams of Tiger Illustrated reported that Hunter Rayburn is giving up football because of ongoing injuries, stingers, shoulder situations. He's having to give up the sport. And he was a part-time starter for the Tigers, but he was valuable because he could play guard and he could play center. In fact, he was expected to be the starting center going into last season, did not perform as well as they had hoped, and that forced them to move Matt Bockhorst over to center and start a freshman at left guard. And then when Rayburn kind of got up to speed and started playing better, they were able to play him at center and Bockhorst at guard. But then when Bockhorst got hurt and he lost the rest of the season because of the knee injury, they moved Rayburn back to guard. Just a lot of shifting around there by Clemson on the offensive line last season. But Rayburn deciding to give it up, and that's a veteran offensive lineman lost by the Tigers going into spring practice. Chris is with us from side court there at the HTC Center in Conway, getting ready for Coastal Carolina and South Alabama. So that's not good news for the Clemson football team to lose a veteran offensive lineman. Offensive line, not exactly a position of great depth or strength for Clemson looking ahead to the 22 season.
Not at all, Phil. And by the way, thank you for lunch. I enjoyed that today. Got some good barbecue in the PD area. Not maybe your sort of Dillon County barbecue, but I hope you enjoyed the Florence County barbecue.
It was outstanding. To say the least, it was outstanding.
I will say this, you pointed out the shifting and everything that Clemson had to go through last year. I think you can trade some, maybe not all, but some of the struggles of the offense last year, at least to Clemson standards, because of all the shifting they had to do and the injuries across the front line. If you're not healthy and solid up on the offensive line, as anybody knows, I mean, look at Georgia and Alabama, how well they play because they have outstanding offensive line. And that has been an issue for the Gamecocks for many, many years, and for one of the rare times, I think it was an issue for the Clemson Tigers, and then you have a veteran who you expect to be able to return and sort of anchor that line moving on. That's obviously not good news for Clemson in an area of a position where they did not perform, I don't think, anywhere close to what they normally expect to do up at along that offensive line.
Well, you look at the offensive line, they lose a Rayburn. Bockhorst is gone. Chio has transferred out. And so you look at him for next year. Now, the right side looks pretty good. Putnam looks solid at right guard, assuming they don't move him around. He looks solid at right guard, and Walker Parks looks solid at right tackle. Mason Trotter, is he back? That's one I'd have to go back and double check. If he's back, I think he's back. You've got Trotter and you've got Limpicum. And Trotter played a good bit of center down the stretch of the season. He kind of took over the center spot. And Rayburn played more guard after Bachorth got hurt. And you've got Limpicum, who came in as a highly touted recruit but didn't crack the lineup and play very much last year. Then you've got to figure out what's going to happen at left guard. Marcus Tate and Michael Mays, and, of course, McFadden. Jordan McFadden is back at left tackle. So you're in good shape there. So, really, I would say, once again, you just got that one spot there at the left guard position that's got to be solidified in spring practice, and some depth to be developed as well. Who's going to step up among some of the backup offensive linemen and give them some depth there? But you hate to lose a veteran player off your offensive line, and that's the case here with Hunter Rabin as the Tigers look ahead to the start of spring practice just a couple of weeks away. Chris, what's the setting there at the HTC Center as we get ready for the last two home games for the Chanticleers?
Oh, you have little faith. We don't think West Ellis can get to 900 this season. All they need to do is win their next four, go into the Sun Belt Conference tournament, win 3, perhaps 4 games there, make a run to the Sweet 16, and there's 900 victories.
Nice.
I realize that's a long shot, but it is still a possibility, an unlikely one. More interestingly enough, though, it is somewhat of a historic night tonight, another milestone on the line for Cliff as he goes after his 890th career victory, along with the 800-plus as the Division I head coach. And on the flip side, Phil, should Coastal lose tonight, that would be his 200th loss as head coach here at Coastal Carolina. So something, one way or the other, he's going to reach a milestone. I'm sure he'd prefer the 890, not the 200. And it's going to be a challenge against a guy who knows his program extremely well. Richie Riley, the head coach of South Alabama, was an assistant under Cliff back in 2009 through 2011 here at Coastal. He also, Clemson fans may remember him as an assistant with the Tigers before he went on to take over the head coaching role at Nicholls State, where he was there for a couple of seasons before getting the job at South Alabama. And all he's done is win down in Mobile. They've won 17 or more games in each of his 4 years, and right now they're playing about as well as anybody. Sort of a stretch where they won 5 in a row, then dropped a couple, but they bring in a very, very talented team. And Phil, as I was telling you earlier today, it's sort of an SEC type team. They've got 4 players who have transferred in, 2 from Auburn, 1 from LSU, and 1 from Texas A&M. And those last 2, Charles Manning Jr. and also J.J. Chandler, they're 2 leading scorers to rank 4th and 5th in the Sun Belt Conference in scoring. So Coastal will certainly have its hands full against a very good South Alabama team who they did not see earlier in the season because South Alabama was dealing with COVID when we were over in Mobile. Actually had to come home before that game actually took place.
All right, very good. Keep an eye on that. Of course, at Daytona tonight, you've got the dual races starting at 7 o'clock. We, of course, had qualifying last night for the 500, and now they'll set the rest of the lineup in their unique qualifying style there at Daytona, which I think is kind of neat. I've always enjoyed the way they have done things at Daytona over the years. Used to be speed weeks. Now it's like, speed 4 or 5 days as they chopped it down. But they'll continue tonight with the qualifying races and set the remainder of the starting lineup following last night's qualifying. So we'll keep an eye on that getting underway a little bit after 7 o'clock, sir.
And one thing, if I may insert in on that, if you're a NASCAR fan, I don't need to tell you this, but it may be a situation where you want to watch the twin 125s tonight, maybe more so than you've normally done in the past, because my theory has always been for Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman, who have already clinched their spots on the front row for the Daytona 500. You start the race and run around and stay in the back so you don't damage your car and have to go to a backup car, and that would move you to the back of the pack for the 500. But still, with this new next-gen car, I heard Joey Logano and some other guys talking about they're really not sure what to expect when they get into a race, and especially get into the draft at Daytona. You may see some guys getting in and figuring out what they're going to be doing on Sunday a little bit more than you would normally do tonight, just because they're breaking up the new cars. They want to see how they handle in the draft, because that is such a big deal at super speedways and in plate racing. And I'll be really curious to see how those 2 guys in particular, Kyle Larson and Alex Bowman, handle tonight. Do they run around in the back of the pack so they protect their car, or do they want to get some more info going into Sunday, and so they'll try and mix it up a little bit?
What's amazing to me, Chris, the winning qualifying speed at Daytona, yesterday, last night, 181.159. Almost a little under 50 seconds if you go by the clock, 49.68. 181. I mean, that's about, in practice, they were turning 191, 192. Now, I wonder where they lost 11 miles an hour. And, of course, traditionally, they run 197, 198. And if you go back before restrictor plates, we're talking 202, 205, 210. 180, that's the slowest Daytona 500 qualifying speed I can remember in decades.
Well, I think you're going to see those speeds come down. It's probably what NASCAR wants with the next gen, a little less horsepower. Also, as KT talked about when we had him on the program Tuesday, got a little bit bigger tires, a bigger wheelbase, and these cars are harder to drive. And Phil, I don't think you'll see speeds in excess of 190 miles an hour anymore. I don't know if the fans are going to enjoy that or not, because what that normally does when you slow all these cars down, that means they're running in packs around the track. And the drivers I know don't enjoy that, because that puts them in harm's way when they're packed, sort of packed so closely together. So you might get a better gauge maybe tonight when they're out actually racing as opposed to just the qualifying laps, to see if those speeds do go up, or if we should expect something. Maybe the winning speed for the Daytona 500 is going to be around 185 miles per hour as opposed to 195 or above.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, though, why in qualifying trim did you lose 11 miles an hour off what they were doing in practice the other day? That's just weird to me. But you know what? I've had people say when we've talked about speeds, I mean, really, does a fan know the difference between 198 miles an hour and 185 miles an hour? I mean, it's still doggone fast, and faster than what you should be driving on the interstate. And do you really know the difference to your eyes? Can you really visually see a difference?
Well, it's that old saying about it, when it's 100 degrees outside and it feels like 102, can you really tell the difference? If it's hot, it's hot.
Yeah.
If you're fast, you're fast. And I see your point. I don't know that the average fan can tell, but I can guarantee you those drivers will realize and notice that additional 11 miles per hour if they start going faster. And I think in some regards, from the qualifying perspective, maybe it's because they're not out there in the draft, and that's going to get them their higher speed. So I think, as I mentioned a minute ago, you may get a better gauge tonight if you watch as to how fast they may be going on Sunday versus what we saw last night.
All right, before we let you run away to your broadcast, I want to touch on this real quick, because a couple of things caught my attention today, and foremost on that was Merle Code, the Greenville native, the former Clemson point guard, who was convicted as part of the FBI sting regarding college basketball a couple of years ago. He's about to go to federal prison for 9 months, and he has also written a book. And in this book, he has exposed a lot of things and made a lot of accusations, including Zion Williamson, by all accounts, according to him, was all set to go to Clemson. And then at the last moment, for whatever reason, well, he knows the reason, he says, he signed with Duke. And he said he goes to Duke, and they go from living very modest means in the Spartanburg area, and they live in a luxury place there in Durham all of a sudden. He also makes accusations about Rick Pitino, who knew that the Bowen kid was getting $100,000. He puts all this out, I guess maybe trying to clear his conscience. It's in a book as well. He's trying to sell a book, and he's doing some media rounds as well, I guess before he goes off to prison. But interesting stuff that he has put out there. Of course, to us, the Zion Williamson information is the most pertinent. Well, of course, Merle Coates, a state kid. Father was a judge up in Greenville, and so he has ties to our state, and of course Zion Williamson does as well. So he's starting to spill the beans on what he says he knows about what really happened behind the scenes, and he says there's a lot of evidence that they never put out there for whatever reason. The FBI never went public with a lot of the evidence that he says he knows about.
Well, don't you find it interesting, Phil, if that is indeed the case? And I think we can all agree there's nothing more sleazy than college basketball recruiting. But don't you find it interesting that if Merle Code is correct, the programs that have been involved are Louisville and Duke and some of the Sacred Cows in the NCAA. This has not really been a good week for Duke's PR department, has it? Because there's also a book coming out about the rise of Mike Krzyzewski that's supposed to hit the book stands, I think, next week. And it does not paint him in the best of light, despite all the wins that he's gotten. And now you get this news here. And Merle Code actually says in his book, we saw an excerpt earlier today, that prior to Zion signing with Duke and announcing he was going to Duke, they let the Clemson basketball office, whomever they is, know that he was coming to Clemson. And the basketball office got all excited. They were getting somebody who could be a program changer. Could you imagine, what's the discussion now that we're talking? Let's assume for a moment that Zion did actually go to Clemson and not to Duke. How would that have changed the fortunes of the Tigers a couple of seasons ago, and now maybe being able to build off of having a player of his magnitude come into your program? Are we talking about a Clemson team that is fading down the stretch, or are we talking about a program that has turned the corner and really playing well based off of having a guy who was a one-and-doner? You aren't going to have him more than a year, but even a year, what kind of impact would he have had at Clemson versus the impact he's had at Duke? I don't think you could say he's changed the Duke program for the better. I mean, they were fine before, and they're fine after. But I think he would have made a huge impact at Clemson had he gone through with what I think some of us believe, and at least that's what Merle Cole believes, should have happened, and he should have signed with Clemson.
Oh, yeah. And Merle Code also says the FBI was going after high-profile names. They wanted Sean Miller, Arizona. They wanted Will Wade at LSU, and they wanted Rick Pitino. He said he told this to Pat Forty, Sports Illustrated, and also in a podcast that Pat Forty put out there. And he said that Anthony Davis, when he went to Kentucky, that he, if I remember this correctly, that Merle Code delivered $10,000 cash to Anthony Davis's family to get him to go to Kentucky for 1 year. That's when Code was working for Adidas and was sort of the one of, as he put it, the boogeyman. He was handing out the cash to the players to try to get them to go to particular schools. So you can look it up on the internet. Interesting stuff. But I thought that, in particular, the stuff about Zion Williamson. And as you know, we had thought going back to that announcement by Zion Williamson, all the indications were, and the reporting coming up from the Clemson media up there, they were totally confident he was going to Clemson. That's why it shocked everybody when he announced for Duke. And now we think we know why, or we believe we know why.
Just crazy. I mean, it is. And you're talking about a once-in-a-generation type athlete that would have been certainly a program changer at a place at Clemson. And again, I think we would look at the Clemson basketball program a lot differently had that played out differently than we do right now.
All right, my friend, we'll let you run off to do your game. I know you've got that coming up on your network, and we'll talk to you tomorrow night, sir. Have a good call.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. You and Pat have fun tonight, and enjoy the show, fans.
All right, thank you, Chris. Chris Bergen, voice of the Coastal Carolina basketball. Chanticleer is getting ready to take on South Alabama. We'll hit our first break tonight and come back with more. We are at James Smith Realty here in Pawleys Island. You know, we talk so much about Jimmy Smith. I had to come down here and see for myself if what we talked about is true. And it is true. Everything we say, we brag about him. As I see in person, it is absolutely true. You can trust what we say about Jimmy Smith and James Smith Realty. Back with more in a moment here on Sports Talk. We're with Major Billy Downer of DNR. Of course, hunting is very popular across the state of South Carolina. Major Downer, what things should our hunters be thinking about before they get out in the field?
It seems like every other show we're talking about hunting safety of some sort. Whether it's turkey season or deer season, hunters always need to be aware of their target. Make sure before you pull that trigger that you know what you're looking at. Whether it's a turkey during turkey season or a deer during deer season, you know you're identifying features of your game. You know what's beyond that target in case you miss.
Learn more about the great outdoors in South Carolina with Major Billy Downer on SC Wild here on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA. Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network.
I'm attorney Jim Corbett. I love sports, and I've helped people for over 30 years. Contact me at jim@jimcorbettattorney.com when the insurance company won't pay your claim or you have complicated issues. Some other business causes your business to lose money? jim@jimcorbettattorney.com. When you lose a relative and find out you got cut out of a will or don't get what was promised. When you have serious injury, like from a wreck or mishap or on the job. jim@jimcorbettattorney.com.
Phone number on Sports Talk, 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. Here on Sports Talk, did you know that since 2002, more than $2.2 billion in lottery proceeds have been used to fund life scholarships for the state's college-bound students? Learn more about the South Carolina Education Lottery's impact at seducationlottery.com/educationwins, and playing for fun is a win for education. Hey, you know, with baseball season cranking up for the major colleges, we're not too far away from the annual weekend showdown between South Carolina and Clemson. This year, the series will open up in Columbia at Founders Park and finish up at Chuck Kingsmore Stadium on Sunday. That's Friday, Sunday. But how about the big event on that Saturday, the Battle at Bull Street, happening at the Segra Park Plaza in the Bull Street District of Columbia? The Battle at Bull Street Fan Fest, presented by Discover South Carolina. That will begin at noon on that Saturday. Gates to the park open at noon. The first pitch is set for 4. Fan Fest is free, open to the public. No ticket is required. Ticket to the game is required for entry to the park only. There'll be a clear back policy and cashless venue. Food and beverage including alcohol, will be available for purchase. They'll have 4 local food trucks for you as well. Plus, the Tokyo Joe band will perform for the event. First set from 12:30 to 1:30. Second set 2:30 to 3:30. There will also be an appearance by a Harlem Globetrotter at 2 o'clock. So, funny game for the whole family. And, of course, a very important baseball game as well to take place inside Segra Park. So make your plans for that. That's the middle game of the 3-game series between South Carolina and Clemson coming up. And that's just going to be in a couple of weeks from now with the start of the season coming up this weekend. We're going to hear some comments from USC baseball coach Mark Kingston coming up a little bit later. He met with the media today to preview things about the upcoming season. So, yeah, thought that story with Merle Code and the book that he is writing and the interview that he gave to Pat Forty was pretty interesting. And the stuff that he is putting out there. I mean, he continues to paint college basketball with a very dark brush, and individuals as well. Code was found guilty of fraud, conspiracy, and bribery charges in 2019. He's exhausted all appeals, so prison awaits him. Things just turned, and the thing is, today, it's all legal. And he said he sort of feels vindicated because in today's world, everything that he was doing, giving cash to players to go to a particular school, it would all be legal. But back then, it wasn't. You have to live by the laws of the time. In this advanced copy of his book, the book is entitled Black Market, an Insider's Journey into the High-Stakes World of College Basketball. Like we mentioned, it includes revelations regarding arrangements made for Zion Williamson and Anthony Davis, and more details on the 6-figure deal for Brian Bowen to attend Louisville. He says it's new information on an old business model, how the sport operated in the margins while staying ahead of NCAA investigators and mocking the frayed concept of amateurism. So it's really good stuff. That'd be a good book to read, I would think. Assuming everything that he is saying is honest and forthcoming, which I guess if you're going to prison over it and you want to sell a book and you want to put it out there, you got nothing to lose, I guess, at this particular time. We'll hit a break, and we'll be back in just a moment.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast: cloudy with mild temps overnight, the low dropping to only 63. Tomorrow, look for thunderstorms, gusty wind in the morning. We'll start to clear out later in the day, have a high of 69. Weekend looks wonderful. High temps Saturday and Sunday in the low to mid-60s. Plentiful sunshine. I'm Kevin Total with your On Point local weather. Do you have a minority or woman-owned business? You want to do business with the City of Columbia or private company? Join Mayor Dick and Councilwoman Tina Herbert for the City of Columbia Office of Business Opportunities Minority Business Opportunity Conference. It's Wednesday, February 23rd at 10 a.m. The virtual event is absolutely free and open to the public. Keynote speakers, Dr. Nico White, a national authority and award-winning advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. To register, visit ovo.columbiasc.gov or call 545-3950.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. The wife of a Navy nuclear engineer charged with trying to sell submarine secrets to a foreign government appears poised to plead guilty. Court notice shows that a plea hearing for Diana Toby has been scheduled for Friday morning in federal court in Martinsburg, West Virginia. Lawyers for Toby did not immediately return phone messages seeking comment Thursday. Toby's husband, Jonathan, pleaded guilty Monday to a charge of conspiring to communicate restricted data. The sentencing range agreed to by lawyers calls for a potential punishment between roughly 12 years and 17. Wall Street, Dow plunged 622 points. The NASDAQ dropping 407. The S&P 500 lower by 94. More details at srnnews.com.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Is that crack in your windshield or your house bothering you?
Have you been meaning to have it replaced but just can't find the time?
Call Absolute Glass, voted Lexington's best glass shop for 12 years in a row.
We repair and replace glass on all makes and models.
We're the only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, and we'll come to you to make the process quick and easy.
With new technologies and vehicles, we can recalibrate your vehicle back to new.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com to learn more about our auto, home, and business glass services. Just remember, if you can see through it, we can do it.
Now, who could that be?
It's Dominion Energy. I signed us up for a home energy checkup. It's time we learn how to save energy and money.
Well, how much does it cost?
Not a dime. It's free, and it only takes about an hour. Plus, we get a report on things we can do to make our home more energy efficient.
I don't know. Sounds too good to be true.
No. See for yourself at DominionEnergySC.com.
Where?
DominionEnergySC.com.
Certain restrictions apply.
If you're like me, you're sick and tired of seeing these old TV stars, game show hosts, these athletes telling you how to save money on your Medicare and on your health insurance. These national toll-free numbers are overwhelming us. It's not that people don't need the service. They need good local customer service, not big box toll-free numbers. See, I work directly with Tim Hanberry right here at Medicare Blueprint in the Midlands. When it comes to my family, I want the best family plan. I'm not even on Medicare, but my mom is. So here's what I do want. Someone local to serve as my advisor on the plans and choices that I have, and someone to help mom with her Medicare. I want someone to help me pick the right plan, save me as much money as possible by knowing all the rules of the game. Medicare Blueprint starts the process with you. They will see it through. They answer all your questions. They call you back. It's the same folks helping you start to finish. Tim and his team are independent. They fight for you, not the insurance company. Online, it's MedicareBlueprint.com or call.
Imagine a hot, fresh pizza just the way you love.
Oh, baby. At Mellow Mushroom Pizza Bakers, we're all about the love.
Our pizzas start with hand-tossed spring water dough. We then add the freshest toppings and bake it all
with love, baby.
Salads, hoagies, and beer from around the world, too. Come enjoy the taste you love at the Mellow Mushroom in the Vista and on Sunset in Lexington.
With love.
We are back on Sports Talk. We're at James Smith Realty here in Pawleys Island, and we are here because we made our way down for the Coaches Clinic, which begins tomorrow over in Myrtle Beach. We'll be there tomorrow night at the Sheraton Four Seasons right there at the Waterway. Looking forward to being around the coaches tomorrow, seeing what we can pick up and see what we can learn. Going to really focus on how to improve my pass rush and, where to put my my hand in the dirt and how to get my heel placed in the right direction so I can get that explosion off the line. So looking forward to being over there and hearing what the coaches have to say tomorrow. Coming up tonight, Mark Kingston, USC baseball coach, comments from him as he met with the media today to preview the start of the Gamecock season tomorrow against UNC Greensboro. Weekend set for them. We heard from Monty Lee earlier in the week as they're opening up against Indiana. Very good Indiana team. Been a national team for a little while, and that'll be a good test for Clemson to open up the regular season. Also tonight, Mike Morgan on the move at 7:05 tonight. And your phone calls, 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, and plenty to tell you about in recruiting coming up. Clemson missed on Luke Montgomery when he committed to Ohio State today, offensive tackle out of Findlay, Ohio. That was kind of the way that thing had developed, and the fact that he was not going to wait until March to come back to visit Clemson and was going to go ahead and make his announcement now. Obviously, that didn't look good for Clemson. Plus, an Ohio kid being right there with Ohio State, the location is very, very important. All right, let's go to Bruce in Columbia, get some phone calls rolling. Love to hear from you tonight. Oh, before we do that, hang on one more second. I wanted to read this one more excerpt from the book that Merle Code wrote and found this to be kind of interesting. Talking about Zion Williamson. Of course, he writes in here that Kansas and Bill Self was all over Williamson with the same stuff, throwing the money at him. Now, all these coaches, of course, they deny this stuff. But he writes that the Williamson family accepted benefits from both Nike and Adidas. Adidas was working with his stepfather, Lee Anderson. His mother, Sharonda Sampson, he wrote, quote, had worked out a deal with Nike to pay her as a consultant. Turns out, he writes, that Lee Anderson, was doing the most, but Sharonda had the real juice, as he wrote it. And Zion had his own mind. Props to him for that. He continues to write, the morning of April 20th, 2018, Clemson got word that Zion would announce that afternoon that he would be officially signing to play for them. A brief moment of euphoria broke out in the Hoops offices on campus. This is Merle Code writing, where football success had far exceeded basketball in recent years. Maybe Zion was going to change that. A few hours later, he continued to write, at a press conference at Spartanburg Day, flanked by his mother, stepfather, track-running older brother, and baby Noah, Zion reached under the table, pulled out a blue hat, and announced to the world, quote, I will be joining the Brotherhood of Duke University, end quote. Code continued to write, when I saw it, I leaned back in my chair and smiled. Well played. End of his quote. Coach said he doesn't know how Duke won out, but he did note that Williamson, who'd been living at extremely modest means when he met them a couple of years earlier, with Anderson even asking for $100 for groceries, moved into a luxury neighborhood in Durham while Zion was in school. Code gladly supplied the grocery money to Lee Anderson then, just as he jumped in to secure a 5-figure payment for Anthony Davis during his one season as a superstar at Kentucky, he writes. Code was in on the ground floor with Davis as the rising phenom in Chicago, getting to know the family well. And later on, he writes about delivering 10,000. So my question is, Zion Williamson, by the NCAA rules back then, should have been ineligible to play at Duke, should he not? And thus, should not every game that he played in at Duke that they won, should that not be counted as a forfeit now? He would be ineligible. Father accepted grocery money. Duke put him up in luxury living conditions, and he obviously received other things. Doesn't that automatically, under NCAA rules of the time, make him ineligible? I know it's
water under the bridge now, but what's fair is fair. And if Duke behaved outside the law at that time, they should pay for it. They should pay for it. I mean, let's just don't shrug the shoulders and wash this away. They had a great year because of Zion Williamson. They made a big deal out of it, and they gained from it. Kentucky, the same with Anthony Davis. They should pay for it, even here after the fact. Don't you think? Or do we just let bygones be bygones? I mean, I think they should pay for it. I've seen too many programs get hammered by the NCAA for much, much less. Okay, and it took them 3 or 4 years after the fact to deliver the penalty. So why not now? And you've got one of the great perpetrators of the crime coming to Columbia Saturday in Will Wade. I mean, the FBI, the NCAA police should be there waiting to greet him at the door of the Colonial Life Arena. If they had any spine. I mean, you've got all this information now at your fingertips that the FBI dug up for you, and now Moral Code is putting in print. Do something. I mean, how long? I don't care how many years it takes. It's never stopped the NCAA before from going back and hammering schools years after the fact and punishing people who weren't even there when the crimes were committed, but they went back and did it anyway. What's fair is fair. And should Krzyzewski be held accountable too? And Bill Self, and Rick Pitino, and Will Wade, and Sean Miller, and on and on. These guys are getting away with basically murder within their own profession there. All right, that's good stuff coming out in that book. All right, 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery. Lucky number here on Sports Talk. We go to, is it Bruce in Columbia up first? Hello, Bruce. Welcome into Sports Talk.
Thanks for taking my call. Man, it gets deep, don't it?
It does, apparently so. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll give you another deep one. This is a story for way back when I was in high school. And Ed Milam played halfback for Pendleton. And Abbeville and Pendleton played every year, second game of the year. And they were rivals, and they were in the same conference as well. But Ed Milam got Player of the Year in 1967. My first game was in 1968 against Pendleton. And I got in I played linebacker. And so they put me in the second quarter because they were running all over. So I think they already had 21 points when I got in the game. The first play I played, the quarterback threw the ball right over my head, and I just couldn't believe I didn't react to it and catch the ball. I could have caught it. The next play, I was in the backfield tackling the quarterback. All night long, I was in their backfield. They lost yardage the whole game that I was in the game. So I don't think we won the game, but it was noted because the sidelines at Pendleton was covered with guys scouting Ed Milam. So after the game, we went in the dressing room, got dressed. The coach said, "Go home with your girlfriend and your parents, Bruce. You did good tonight." And I went on and got in the car and took off with my girlfriend and my parents. The coach got confronted by the South Carolina football scout. And he asked the coach, "Who was that number 47 you got on the football field? He's not even on the roster. Who is that guy?" And he said, "He's got 4 more years." He just shoved him off. Anyway, so I found out from one of the players, he overheard the guy ask him who I was. So it was Carolina. And I'm a Clemson fan and everything else. So I started watching, WIS late.
All right, Bruce, we got to get to the end of the line here. What's the point?
I'm talking about the 1971 basketball team at Carolina.
Okay.
I would get on WIS late at night in Abbeville, just the second half, and I get to watch the second half of the basketball game, and I got to watch those guys play basketball. And that was my story. Black and white television, aerial, no cable network or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to watch them play basketball. They were a great team, and it seemed like after the game or during the game they get in a fight. Anyway, that was their mantra. There you go.
Yes, they were a physical group. There was no question about it. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Trying to connect the dots there from Bruce's high school football career to John Roach and Company, but that's okay. That reminds me that Saturday they're having the reunion weekend, the Legends Weekend at South Carolina, recognizing the 71 team and the 1997 team. And G.G. Jackson is going to be there. I had a long conversation with Jackson's dad today, and the story will be up on our website later tonight. Some great insight about the visit coming up this weekend. And by the way, P.J. Dozier and Chris Silva, two former Gamecocks, were at their game last night as Ridgeview won their first-round playoff game. And they were there, and they talked to the family, I think, after the ball game. And, the more I talk to folks over there, the more I think South Carolina has got a great shot here. Got a great shot with the guy considered number one prospect in the 23 class. Remember, though, he's got another year of high school. He still has another year of high school to go. He's in the 23 class. And I don't think there's any thought of moving up to the 22 class. I don't think there's any thought of him going to Oak Hill Academy with his head coach when he leaves and all that. He's turned down offers from the G League and turned down offers from the what's that called? Overtime Elite. They've been trying to get him, and they've turned him down. They want to go to college. So that's a good thing. All right, before we hit the break, we've got is that the bad boy on the line? Is that right, Pat? Is that you're telling me?
That's right. We sure do. Got a guest appearance here.
All right, stand by, everybody. A statewide appearance for the bad boy of Sports Talk Radio here in the Myrtle Beach PD area, none other than Alan Smothers. Welcome in, sir.
Well, welcome to the Grand Strand, Phil.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, I know you love being down in Pawleys Island, but I wanted to call in, and I know you got a short time here. A lot of what you have said in the last 15 minutes, 100% true. All of these coaches that Merle Code says that the FBI probe was going after absolutely were. They ended up with low-hanging fruit like Merle Code and Chuck Person and, other names that you may or may not know. The problem is, and I'm reading a couple of pieces, I don't see the excerpts that you are referring to on Google searches, but I'll find it before tomorrow.
Check out Sports Illustrated. Check out SI.com.
Okay, SI.com. Merle Code played for me in AAU. I've never had a better kid in my life than Merle Code. No, he is honest as the day is long. He was doing his job. He worked for Adidas. He was a bag man. He admits it. Chris Rivers, who was in charge of the grassroots program at Adidas, made sure that Merle Code and all of his other people that worked for him did exactly what the coaches of Adidas, and you can put Nike and Under Armour and all these other shoe companies involved in the same thing. They were doing exactly what they were told to do. And I don't know why it's against the law. I know it's against NCAA rules, but I don't know why it's against the law and why the FBI is sending people like Merle Code, who was just doing his job, to prison when Rick Pitino and Will Wade and Sean Miller and Bill Self and all the people you were talking about still have their jobs, except for Sean. Now,
that's my point.
The one thing that Sean Miller did what was unforgivable, he was losing at Arizona. As long as you win, it all goes away. That's the one unforgivable thing is losing. So he started losing at Arizona, so he lost his job.
And why would South Carolina take Brian Bowen? I know they were starving for talent, but I mean, and they constantly defended his integrity, and maybe so. But you shouldn't come anywhere near at that FBI investigation, especially since you had a former coach who moved on somewhere else. And while he was somewhere else, well, actually, not while he was somewhere else, it happened to you right there in Columbia, as he was involved with P.J. Dozier. And then he got in more trouble out there at Oklahoma State. But I don't understand why you would bring in a player that had some hints that something was going on at Louisville. It might not have been his doing, but I wouldn't have come within 100 miles of somebody like that.
Especially when Lamont Evans was involved in the FBI investigation.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, a former assistant. Yeah, I don't understand that. You're just asking for fire. You're asking for trouble.
Right.
But, I mean, last thing, I'll let you go. I mean, don't you think something should be done to Duke? I mean, it's been proven here. You've got the guy who's coming forward and saying, this is what happened. Why should Duke skate? Why should Kentucky skate? Since we know under the rules at that time, not the 2022 rules where it's okay, the 20, whatever it was, 17, 18, 16, whatever years it was, those rules, it was not okay. You might not have liked the rules, and like you said, it shouldn't be against the law, but apparently it is, and it certainly was against the NCAA law. Why are they allowed to skate?
Because they are who they are. Just like Krzyzewski is going to get away with this with John Shire's situation and Tommy Amaker. We could go in another direction. But the last thing I wanted to say about Merle Code is a stand-up adult, great man, great kid, great family, the whole 9 yards. And he's taking the fall because the FBI could not get their claws into Mike Krzyzewski and Bill Self and Will Wade and all these guys. He's taking the fall for it. He wrote this book, and the Louisville Courier-Journal is trying to say, well, that most of his, comments are uncorroborated. He was involved. He was the guy giving the money. I think that's corroboration. He was the man involved doing the things that he said he did. How can that not be corroboration? And so, but I mean, again, he was doing his job, and he was trying to, I don't know, he was trying to help clean up, but the FBI didn't do their job and clean up college basketball. I was excited about it when it first came out, and it all fell to, and I'm just, it bothers me. And it bothers me that a Merle Code is going to have to go to prison for 9 months, and all these other guys still keep their jobs in doing it. But I just, like I said, I wanted to, back up Merle Code as a stand-up man. And he writes this book. I guarantee you everything that he wrote in the book is absolutely true. Guarantee it.
We gotta go. Thank you so much. Go back to the back porch. Enjoy your beverage and your Stokie, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, buddy. Thank you. The bad boy, Alan Smothers, with us here on Sports Talk. Got to hit a break, and we'll come back with more and continue with this conversation. Plus, there's something else I want to get into that I read today that was kind of interesting. We'll bring that to you coming up in a little bit. USC Women, by the way, they're back in action tonight. They are home, number 1 team in the country. They are home to take on Auburn, and probably will be a blowout for the USC ladies, as they've been taking care of their business in a big way here throughout the season. And we'll be right back.
Touchstone Energy Cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com. You're listening to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. We're back in a moment.
I learned that people are just looking for somebody to listen to them. You can't just start cutting somebody's hair and you're just going to be quiet the whole time because you're not going to be in business long.
The South Carolina Education Lottery has provided over $800 million to help students attend technical colleges across our state. investing in a new generation of entrepreneurs, just like James. Your passion is our purpose.
College basketball tonight. We've got, of course, South Alabama at Coastal Carolina tipping off a little bit after 7 o'clock. It's James Madison playing tonight at the College of Charleston. That game will tip off a little bit after 7 o'clock as well. That's the only other game involving an in-state team tonight, I do believe. So we'll keep a close watch on those two games for you. 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. We are here at James Smith Realty down here in Pawleys Island. I want to remind you that if you're getting ready to head out for vacation, whether it's here in the spring or sometime in the summertime, make sure you give the folks here at James Smith Realty a call and let them set you up in some great digs. They'll work with you to fit you in perfectly, like that pair of shoes. You want it to fit just right. That's what they will do for you. You need something large, they can find it for you. You need something a little smaller, they can fit you in that as well. And whatever fits your budget is how you can is what they can do for you. So make sure you give them a call. Look them up online, James Smith Realty, here in Pawleys Island, and that is PawleysVacationRentals.com. PawleysVacationRentals.com is how you can find them online. We go to Jamie in Hilton Head next up here on Sports Talk. Jamie, welcome in. How are you, sir? Good to have you with us.
Good, Phil. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Always a pleasure.
One thing I want to tell you, make sure I grew up in a little town around Aiken where we had, and I don't know if you remember this fellow, we had Troy Williamson went to my high school.
Yes.
And you remember Keith Bean? Do you remember that name?
Absolutely, Keith Bing.
Yeah. He went to our high school, and so
didn't
we
he
had
change names? Didn't he?
He did.
Wasn't he Keith? Wasn't he Keith Lewis, and he became Keith Bing?
He was Keith Lewis, and he became Keith Bing. Yes, he did. Yes,
the brain is as sharp as ever.
Yes, he did. But boy, I'll tell you, the NCAA. You talk about punishing Duke. The NCAA is like the parents that had the child later in life. Okay, we were straight on the first three, but now we've got this fourth one. You go do whatever you want. Just don't embarrass us. You know what I'm saying? Just go do whatever you want to do. Just don't embarrass us. But you kind of ruffled my feathers a little bit last night, Phil. When we hung up, you said, Jamie said Clemson got blowed out by Rutgers, and maybe I did, but I thought I said knocked out. But you illustrated a good point to Brad Brownell. You talked about how Clemson had a 10-point lead in that game. So Brad Brownell's team blowing leads is not just this year. And I am just a frustrated basketball fan. As much as I'm trying to love the game, honestly, I just want a new style.
I hear you. Yeah, that's been a problem for them. It's really been noticeable this year, the fact that they just have trouble hanging on the leads. It goes all the way back to when they were playing in Charleston in November, when they blew leads early in those games, or blew leads late in those games there early in the season. It has hampered them throughout the season, and I think he's mentioned it, and I think you point to the problem with this team, besides the lack of poor guard play here of late, defense. They're not a good defensive team, and Brad Brownell's teams, typically the ones that are good and can make it to the tournament, they can clamp down on you and stop you from scoring late in games. And this team hasn't been able to do that. They've just given up basket after basket during crunch time, and it's hurt them in many games.
Right. Well, I didn't want to tell you, I agree with you on Duke, but it's not going to happen because the NCAA is basically quit.
Oh yeah, I think they've come down to Pawleys Island as a group and gone on vacation. I really do. You're right. That's an excellent point. I think they've all gone on retirement up there at Indy. Top of the hour break. We'll be back.
By the way, before we do what's supposed to happen here, thank you for pushing the button. I thank you. Programming thanks you. America thanks you.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters. Worries about a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine continue to predominate the headlines today. President Biden called the Russian invasion highly likely today before departing for an appearance in Ohio. Fiona Hill, a former National Security Council senior director for Europe and Russia, says there's a reason the U.S. is releasing so much detail about what it thinks Vladimir Putin may do in Ukraine.
What Putin is looking for is operational surprise, and what the United States government has been doing with all of these alerts that AP and others have been receiving is to try to kind of fight Russian disinformation with information.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis tells the Salem Radio Network Russia's action is in stark contrast to what it's saying about its troops.
We shouldn't be surprised that the Russians are lying. That's their modus operandi, and that tracks back certainly a century, and we experienced that consistently during the Cold War when I was over there.
Don't plan on a gas tax holiday. Correspondent Ken Lorman has the details.
Political observers say Democrats are concerned that voters are blaming their party and President Biden for skyrocketing gas prices. Against that backdrop, a number of Senate Democrats are calling for a federal gas tax holiday, suspending the nearly 19-cent gas tax, but only until the end of the year. Interestingly, that would lower gas prices only until after the midterm elections. A number of Republicans and West Virginia Democrat Joe Manchin are declaring the bill dead on arrival. Ken Lorman reporting.
Worries about Ukraine sent stocks spiraling down again. The Dow dropping 622 points today. The Nasdaq lower by 407. The S&P 500 lower by 94. Oil down to $90.62 a barrel. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Thinking about life insurance? What if you could make one free phone call and learn your best price from nearly a dozen highly rated, price-competitive companies? Well, that's exactly what happens when you call SelectQuote Life. For example, George is 40. He was getting sky-high quotes from other companies because he takes meds to control his blood pressure. But when I shopped around, I found him a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $25 a month. I'm SelectQuote agent Dan Savino. And believe me, if SelectQuote isn't shopping for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For a free quote, call 800-523-3771. That's 800-523-3771. 800-523-3771. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
The Senate is forming a bipartisan commission to examine the Federal Bureau of Prisons over allegations of scandal and abuse.
The Senate Bipartisan Prison Policy Working Group will be led by Democrat John Ossoff of Georgia and Republican Mike Braun of Indiana. Ossoff says the group will, quote, examine conditions of incarceration in U.S. federal prisons, protect human rights, and promote transparency. In all, the Federal Bureau of Prisons has charge over 122 prisons. It's come under fire, and its director resigned recently amid a scandal over widespread sexual abuse, criminal behavior by staff members, and a lack of COVID-19 protections. Bob Agnew reporting.
The Senate voted 65-30 to start debating legislation averting a weekend government shutdown. The bill would keep agencies afloat through March 11th. Leaders hope that will give bipartisan bargainers enough time to finally reach a deal. News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
On Point Weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy with mild temps overnight. The low dropping to only 63. Tomorrow, look for thunderstorms. Gusty wind in the morning. Will start to clear out later in the day. Have a high of 69. Weekend looks wonderful. High temps Saturday and Sunday in the low to mid 60s. Plentiful sunshine. I'm Kevin Cohen with your On Point local weather.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
From the Bart Fireside Studio, the solution for keeping you warm this winter.
This is 107 The Point. Ooh, you shouldn't have pressed that button. Oh. Now you get this.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Sports Talk on this big Thursday night here on Sports Talk as we come to you from James Smith Realty down here in Pawleys Island. Our phone number, 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. USC Women out to a 7-2 lead on Auburn in the first 2.5 minutes of that game over the CLA. Cook already with 5 for the Gamecocks. Boston's got 2 points and 4 rebounds already, and she's headed towards working towards another double-double for her. And, boy, Dawn Staley's been very outspoken. For some reason, she feels like Boston doesn't get the national acclaim that she deserves. And, I mean, I don't know what they're saying nationally about women's college basketball, but how can you talk about the National Player of the Year without beginning with Aaliyah Boston? I mean, the conversation should begin and pretty much end with her at this point in time. Number 1 team in the country, and the double-double streak that she has, the domination that she has been playing with. How could you even consider anybody else at this point in time until proven otherwise? So, but apparently Dawn Staley feels like Boston's not getting the type of a national acclaim that she deserves. So I'm just saying that would be poor on the national pundits who talk about women's basketball not to acknowledge Aaliyah Boston as the very strong favorite to be the National Player of the Year this year. All right. Are we set with Mike?
We are. And just one more quick note regarding the Gamecocks tonight. Reserve player Camila Cardoso will actually miss her 3rd straight game. She stepped away from the program last week to play for her national team in the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup qualifying tournament, sustained a lower left leg injury, and she will be sitting out for precautionary reasons tonight against Auburn.
Don't need her.
That's right.
Not that they don't need her, but I mean, this game, I don't think they'll need her. They've got Tennessee coming in on Sunday, of course, and ESPN's Game Day Cruise coming in for that. It's going to be a big deal over at the Colonial Life Arena. Meantime, the men playing LSU on Saturday, and that should be a big deal as well. Should be a good crowd, with it being the reunion day for South Carolina as far as recognizing 2 former clubs, the 71 ACC Tournament Championship team and the 97 SEC regular season championship team. We'll see how many of the former players and coaches can make it back for that. We welcome in Mike Morgan for his weekly visit with us here on Sports Talk. Mike Morgan on the move. Good to have you with us once again, sir. We spent a good bit of the first half hour talking about Merle Code and his revelations in his soon-to-be-released book as he heads off to prison. Don't know how much of that you've read about and followed. If you have, what's your reaction to what you've read?
I've seen very little. Nothing that I saw surprised me. He, along with the other people kind of involved in that world that got caught up in that FBI, I don't know if you want to call it a sting or operation or whatever the case may be. You followed recruiting a long time, Phil. There's a lot of stuff that you would never go on the air with, let's be honest. So, no, I saw blurbs here and there, and quite honestly, not much surprised me.
Do you think, based on what he is saying, that the NCAA should be following up and punishing these programs for, like, Zion Williamson getting the benefits at Duke, Anthony Davis getting the $10,000 at Kentucky, Brian Bowen and $100,000 at Louisville? Should the NCAA follow up like they have done in the past for their existence, even years after the fact, and go back and punish these teams? Or is this just too little too late?
I think it's probably going to be too little too late. I think, when the dust has settled the way it has on Auburn, which ironically is that's where I was last night. When that whole thing broke, the biggest name or potential scandal, if you remember, was Bill Self at Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
Not much came out of that at all. People are still, they always like to point to Will Wade. Nothing's happened there. I just, and now with NIL, I feel like most people have just kind of shrugged it off like, hey, all this is legal now anyway, so who cares? And on top of that, the NCAA got dunked on by the Supreme Court, and it's almost as if they're saying, you know what? If you think we're the bad guy, fine. You do all this stuff yourself.
Well, it's like a previous caller said before you. It's like the NCAA has just quit. I said they've retired and moved to Pawleys Island. I mean, they've just basically thrown their hands up as a collective organization and said we can't do anything about anything, so we'll just let everything go.
Yeah, you see these videos now, I guess, in California. If you steal anything under $1,000, they don't prosecute. So people are walking into stores stealing, and there's always that security guard who just stands there and watches and does absolutely nothing as the perpetrator walks out with a bag full of stuff that's clearly stolen. That's kind of what the NCAA looks like now. I mean, they're just like, and part of me actually can't blame them because, for much of the time during all their efforts to either eliminate NIL or legislate NIL, they kept getting fought, and you had a rather large contingent of people that said, no, you have no right here. And so I think now they're kind of like secretly Mark Emmert's in a room, wringing his hands and going, ha, 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 not so easy to regulate this as that. Now maybe you understand why I wanted to do something about this. I just don't feel like there's much going on in the way of oversight. And I think it's going to take the Power 5 commissioners, like it does with everything else in sports, to actually get something done that makes this a little more clear cut so we know what we're dealing with. Because right now, I just feel like it's as close as you can have to the Wild Wild West, and there's not a whole lot of legislation going on.
It is chaos. And I think something you said is probably true. In today's world now, 2022, with collectives being created all across the country for every school, and some schools having multiple collectives. I was just looking at an article on three, and like Texas has got, I think, 3 different organizations ready to supply money to their athletes all across the country. South Carolina's got one. Arizona's got a couple. Even on their websites, the On3 website now, they don't just rank a player or list a player by their star rating as his athletic skills. They now identify him by his earning power, by what they project him to make with his NIL. Like this player is worth 1 point, something million over how many years, whatever the case may be. So it's a different time here in 22, and I think people are like, you know what? They should have been getting this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It's not like they were creating or committing a murder and doing major crimes. What's the problem with funneling money under the table to these players when they should have been getting it above board to begin with? Let's just forget about it and move on.
I think that's where a lot of people are. I do think a lot of people, when all this ball of yarn is kind of untwined and we really see what it looks like, if the same 10 schools are able to outspend everybody and continually get the top recruits based on their financial packages that they're able to offer before they ever arrive on campus, that may be where the other side says, you know what, this is not exactly what I thought it was going to be. We might need to tweak this a little bit. And it kind of looks like that's potentially where we're heading. If you looked at the last recruiting classes and signing day, and I know Jimbo kind of went off on everybody on how much of that stuff was fact and fiction and accurate and inaccurate. And I get it. It's a website and somebody without much credibility reported. But you can't convince most people that the schools that have the deepest donor pockets are not going to be able to completely exploit NIL. And if you're one of those schools that's able to do it, then you'll love it. If you're the 90-something% that can't compete with that, then I'm not so sure you're a big fan.
What's going to happen when all this money is being poured into the programs now from the donors to go to the players and the team loses? Because they're giving money because they want to win, and they're giving money to feel like they're going to attract the best players. Even with the best players, you don't always win. What's going to happen when you have a losing season and players
fire the coach? It's the coach's fault. You fire the coach and you spend an exorbitant buyout, or you try to frame him so you don't have to pay the buyout. You
we
fire
do that
now.
That's something that happens now. Yeah,
I know. It's a disturbing trend.
But what I was trying to get to is, will the money flow dry up at some point? And then what's going to happen with these collectives?
That's impossible to answer because every situation is uniquely different. I mean, is it going to dry up at Texas? Probably not. Could it dry up at Tennessee? Probably so. Those are two schools, while they're both prominent in their own way, have entirely different sets of resources. Every school likes to think they've got a big money donor, and every school probably does, but it's all relative. You might have this terrific, philanthropic, generous booster that is willing to put a lot of money into this thing. But then there's another school that has 10 times that amount. Well, obviously, the school that has 10 times that amount is going to have more to work with. Now, look, the other side of this, people will say, well, hell, the same schools are dominating recruiting every year anyway before NIL. So what's really going to change? And that's a valid point, too.
Sure.
Something tells me Nick Saban would have top 5 recruiting classes no matter what. Something tells me Kirby Smart would have top 5 recruiting classes no matter what. But make no mistake about it, those two schools will have the ability to take advantage of NIL more than a heck of a lot of them out there.
Let me ask you real quick before you leave us. South Carolina gets LSU at home on Saturday, and the crook Will Wade. What should they expect, not from Will Wade, but from the LSU basketball team?
Well, they've got Pinson back, which means they have their floor general back. He's healthy. They're defending better, but at times they have gone into offensive droughts. Look, I think South Carolina, there's a lot of winnable games left on the schedule. And I think most of them, with the possible exception of at Auburn, that's going to be a really difficult task to win there. Nobody's winning there this year. All these other games, if you play a good game, if you have a good plan, to me, they're winnable games. So, look, they'll be an underdog, justifiably so, but it's hardly an unwinnable game. They had to have the Ole Miss game. Maybe you hit a shot like that and you feel like, you know what, this is what we needed to really turn the tide. They got a lot of work to do. I mean, this is the kind of win they need. With all due respect to Ole Miss and Georgia and Vanderbilt, those wins don't do anything to help your net, anything to help your RPI, your strength of schedule. So there's a lot of meat left on that bone. LSU would help. Mississippi State would help. At Alabama would help. These are the kind of games you're going to have to win if you're going to have any chance to go to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, look, for all the hand-wringing we've done about Gamecock basketball this season, they're 6-7 in the league, and if they beat LSU, depending what else happens, they could be right up there in 5th place by next week.
But I mean, again, just remember this: it's not the 6 and 7; it's who the 6 are, and that's they've got one quad 1 win.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not my opinion. This is what the committee looks at. I mean, we're well versed in what the committee looks at. You're going to see all our television broadcasts start flashing up these quad 1, quad 2 net numbers, and for a lot of people, it's just mumbo jumbo. But that's what the committee actually uses to determine things. So if your 6 wins are full of a bunch of teams at the bottom third of the SEC, again, that's not going to be good enough. So you've got to start beating. It's going to be less about the record and more about the quality wins for a lot of teams. And South Carolina would fall under that camp. But again, there are games left on that schedule which would really boost those numbers. So it's better to have them on the schedule and have a chance than not have them on the schedule, just rack up a bunch of wins against bad teams and it doesn't really matter because you haven't done anything to help your case.
Exactly. Mike, we'll let you run. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. You're going to be where?
I am going to be in Athens, my first Georgia game of the year, and obviously they've got all kinds of issues right now. So I go from Auburn, which is a team that is Final Four national championship good, that is loaded, that has one of the best home court environments, to Georgia, which has all kinds of issues as well documented by the standings.
Now go by and kiss the trophy while you're there.
Okay. All right.
See ya. Take care. Mike Morgan. Morgan on the move with us here on Sports Talk. Always appreciate him dropping by. Last night, Auburn beat Vanderbilt 94-80. Alabama, 5-point winner over Mississippi State, 80-75. You know, South Carolina's got both of those still coming up. Upstate having a really good year, beat Presbyterian 60-55. Winthrop having a really good year, 11-2 in the Big South, 81-70 over Gardner-Webb. Asheville over Charleston Southern, 85-66. Miami beat Louisville, Clemson's opponent Saturday, 70-63. Notre Dame won another tight one in overtime over Boston College, 99-95. Furman 103-85 over Western Carolina. And Wofford turned back the Citadel 65-88. LSU, as we were talking about, big winner over Georgia last night, 64-55. LSU comes to Columbia, and they are 7-6 in the league, 19-7 overall. And the big upset of the night, Pittsburgh winning in Chapel Hill. How about that? That's a Pittsburgh team which is now 5 games under 500 and 4 games under 500 in the ACC, going into Chapel Hill and winning by 9, 76-67. All right. As far as tonight, we'll update a couple of things here for you. Coastal leading South Alabama 17-14. James Madison over the College of Charleston 17-12. And the USC Women leading Auburn 20-13 after a quarter of play over the Colonial Life Arena. And leading the way for the Gamecocks thus far is Cook with 9 points, 4 of 7 from the floor. Henderson with 5. Boston has 2 points and 5 rebounds after a quarter. We'll hit a break and come back with more. We've got recruiting coming up for you. Comments from USC baseball coach Mark Kingston as well. And we can take more calls. Always love to hear from you when we can. 888-898-2525 is the phone number. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number here on Sports Talk. And we're back right after this break.
Sports fans, are you in it to win it? Join South Carolina's fight against COVID-19 by getting your vaccine today. Vaccines are safe and will help stabilize school operations by bringing us back together safely. The CDC recommends everyone 5 years and older get vaccinated. Visit scdhec.gov/VaxLocator or call 866-365-8110 to find a vaccination station near you. Stay tuned. More Sports Talk is coming up on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Life, it has its ups and downs. Sometimes it's little things like hitting every red light or dropping your cell phone. Maybe it's the bills, rent, or pressure at work. But when it comes to the South Carolina Education Lottery, you should never feel like playing will solve everything. The lottery is a game. It's played for fun. So set a dollar amount. Expect not to win and make sure responsibilities, family, friends, and work come first. Visit playresponsiblysc.com.
We are back on Sports Talk on this big Thursday night. We got recruiting coming up for you. Just a few minutes. 888-898-2525. South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number for you here on the program. Let's get back to some phone calls. Billy in Somerville, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Phil?
Good.
I got a comment and I got a question. The comment's got to do with the Duke Pro and everything that's going on with that right now. I'm like you on about it. I don't think it's fair that teams like Duke and North Carolina, Kentucky, these type of schools can get away with stuff like this, whether it happened a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because they still violate rules. They still violate the NCAA rules. And as far as that goes, it's like it's not fair because it's been South Carolina, Clemson, or anybody else like from a smaller basketball team, they would have been already given more than what Duke or any other team would get right now. That's how I feel about it. I think they should get in trouble. It's not fair to the other programs, and it just sends a bad message all the way around. It's like, well, if you're this school or that school, like you said, you can get away with everything, but if you don't have it like we do, then you're going to get in trouble for it.
Yeah, I think this, you and I think alike, and I think, fair-minded, open-minded people probably think like we do as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, these are crown jewel programs, and I just think they're not going to do anything to them because it's now after the fact. The world has changed. It's a whole different environment now around college sports. And it's probably like, what's the use? What's the use? You're going to go back and take wins away from Mike Krzyzewski like they did Bobby Bowden. You're going to go back and do the same thing to, Bill Self or Pitino or any of those guys. Are they really going to go back and do that? I don't think they have the spine, nor do they have the intestinal fortitude or the work ethic to want to go back and do that now. I think it's like the caller said a while back. They're on vacation. They've just quit.
But couldn't they do some kind of like probation thing with that? I mean, wouldn't that be a probation violation as well? No matter how far back it went.
They put teams on probation years after the fact in the past, but this is a different deal now. This is a different deal, and I don't think they're going to do anything. They sat back and let the FBI do all their dirty work. The FBI presented them with a certain amount of evidence, and now, Code is talking. Will Lamont Evans, when he gets out of jail, he might already be out of jail. Will some of the others who were found guilty in this case, will they eventually come forward and write their books and have their memoirs, and will they present evidence against programs and coaches? We'll see what other evidence does come out. I mean, Moral Code said in his book, and what was the excerpts taken by SI, that there was a lot of evidence presented to the FBI that hasn't gone public for whatever reason, or the FBI didn't use. So, I mean, there's a lot more smoke. There's a lot more fire out there, I believe, in this entire situation. But I don't know if they'll ever get to the bottom of it. I don't know if anything will ever come of it.
Right. And kind of like with the situation with North Carolina when they had that one kid that had the fake classes that supposedly played and still graduated, and they did North Carolina can slap on the wrist too. So I mean, it's just really not fair all the way around.
Well, that's one of the greatest. That is the one of the greatest droppings of the ball, I guess you could say.
Right.
One of the greatest burying your heads situations I've ever seen in all the years of NCAA enforcement and investigations and talk of reeling schools in and everything else. There's common sense, just plain common sense. If you apply it to the North Carolina case, they should have been hit with major penalties.
Exactly.
Just from the very simple fact that, and they use the excuse that the classes were open to all the students, and therefore that made it legal for North Carolina to do what they did. I mean, that's pretty much what they hung their hat on in their defense here. But you know what? You had athletes maintaining eligibility fraudulently, and that should be the number one crime in the NCAA if you cared about academics at all, which obviously that's gone out the window now with everybody being professional. But back then, amateurism and academics were still pretty much part of the landscape. And they let them walk. So, there is no fair justice in the NCAA so-called justice system. I think we all realize that.
Yeah. And one last thing, and I'll hang up and listen. How do you think the baseball team is going to do this year? Do you think they're going to be about middle like what they were last year, or possibly even a little bit better? And I'll hang up and listen.
All right, let me address that after the break, and we'll hear from Mark Kingston. And you might hear some things from Mark Kingston that will help answer that question for you as well. But I would put a big garnet question mark on the Gamecock baseball team going into tomorrow. Back.
On Point weather is made possible by our friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union on 107 The Point.
Here's tonight's forecast. Cloudy with mild temps overnight. The low dropping to only 63. Tomorrow, look for thunderstorms. Gusty wind in the morning. Will start to clear out later in the day. Have a high of 69. Weekend looks wonderful. High temps Saturday and Sunday in the low to mid 60s. Plentiful sunshine. I'm Kevin Cohn with your On Point local weather.
Hi, honey. Were you able to drop by Tree Pharmacy today to pick up Mom's medications?
Yes, she sure is on a lot of meds.
I know. That's why I go over so often, to help make sure she's taking them correctly.
Well, I have great news. The pharmacist at True Pharmacy said he can pre-pack her medications into individual doses.
Wow. Knowing she's taking the right meds at the right time will give me great peace of mind. But how much does it cost?
That's the even better part. It's free. Just another great service they offer at True Pharmacy. True Pharmacy, 2 locations, Charleston Highway in West Columbia and Divine Street downtown.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting. Saudi Arabia is signaling it is not willing to pump more oil and won't push for changes to an agreement with Russia and other producers that has kept a lid on oil production levels. That has Washington concerned as gasoline prices rise at the pump and tensions over Ukraine fuel market uncertainty. The Biden administration dispatched 2 officials to Saudi Arabia this week to talk about a range of issues, chief among them the ongoing war in Yemen and global energy supplies. Higher prices at the pump pose a threat to Democrats in upcoming elections. President Biden has warned that gas prices could get even higher if Russia invades Ukraine. On Wall Street, the Dow down by 622 points, the Nasdaq dropping 407, the S&P 500 lower by 94. More details at srnnews.com.
When you're a military veteran with over 40,000 organizations trying to help you, it can be hard to find the right information. That's why AARP brings together valuable resources to help you navigate your options. AARP.org/veterans. With the free veteran employment and fraud prevention resources, caregiving tools, and access to discounts, AARP, on a mission to support veterans. Visit AARP.org/veterans today.
Everyone knows that here at The Point, we are all about supporting local businesses. We are all about local, local, local. You cannot get more local than my friend Greg McCoy and his business, Simplified Mortgage Solutions. Fran Halloran here. If you're buying a home or you're looking to refinance your current home, you owe it to yourself to call Greg. He is the real deal. You can expect Greg to treat you like you are his only client. You can expect Greg to scour the market to find you the best rate available. You can expect Greg to charge you a fair price for his work and his service. Why would you deal with some national company headquartered in who knows where when you can do business with Greg? Need further persuasion? Okay, I didn't even mention the good Greg does in our community by supporting local charities like Blue Star Mothers and Camp Chemo. Come on, you need to call Greg. Online at simplifiedmortgagesc.com, or you can call Greg at 803-722-6044. That's 722-6044.
Hey, it's Jay with the Melting Pot. So this is the time of year when we try to be responsible and plan out the next 12 months. I'm not good at it either, so let's work on this together. Go and grab your calendar, whether it's on your phone or on your refrigerator. Find your anniversary, your best friend's birthday, your kid's birthday, your spouse's birthday, graduation day, and write in Melting Pot. We're the premier special occasion restaurant in the Midlands, the Melting Pot.
Have you fallen behind on your taxes and might be facing IRS penalties? Have wage garnishments, levies, or liens? Have unfiled tax returns? You want someone local and qualified. Don't fall for those national spots. Meet with me, Teresa, at Capital City Professional Services, and let me help you through your tax maze. I can help with all your tax resolution issues. There are options to get you back on track. Call Capital City Professional Services, 400-8683. That's 400-8683.
Hey, Tiger fans, 2022 Clemson baseball season tickets are currently on sale. Coach Monty Lee and your Clemson Tiger baseball team open the season on February 18th, and you can be there for every game by purchasing your season tickets. Home series include matchups against Miami, Florida State, NC State, Georgia Tech, as well as our annual home games against South Carolina and Georgia, and many more. So log on to ClemsonTigers.com to purchase your Clemson baseball tickets and come back home to Clemson.
Back with you on Sports Talk Media Network. Harry writes to us on our Twitter, if I were a Southern Cal fan and along with Reggie Bush, I would be pissed. Yeah, I guess he's talking about what's coming out now and the fact that they got hammered and Reggie Bush got hammered by the NCAA for what happened back then. And, yeah, I mean, again, it's just such an uneven distribution of the laws under the NCAA. It's not even close to being fair and honest. Not that fair and honesty with the NCAA? I mean, what does that mean? That's a pipe dream. But it's not even close. Sensible thinking people can see through it and realize just how bad that organization at the end of the day here for them. Hopefully the end of the day. I'm hoping now in this new world of college athletics where everybody's a professional, let's just get rid of the NCAA. Let the NCAA run the academic schools, the schools that play sports related to scholarships for academics. Okay, let them run them. Let everybody else move on to the professional college ranks, and let whatever's going to play out there play out. But let's just have new rules, new rule book, new organization, new leadership. Let Greg Sankey run the whole thing. He does anyway, and go with it that way. Just let it go. Come up with a whole new deal. Why not? Everything else is new. Wipe the slate clean and begin again. I don't know what you would penalize people for now. What rules could you create that would, you want to enforce? Is there anything that you want to enforce? We'll talk about this after recruiting, Pat, but think about it. In a new world that I'm talking about with professional college athletics where everybody can get paid, everything's above board from that standpoint. You want to put a family up, for a week at a 5-star hotel at your expense and give them $10,000, whatever you want to do, where everything goes. What rules could you possibly break? What rules could you possibly create that could be broken? That's the question. All right. Think about that as we talk recruiting here on Sports Talk. Pretty soon recruiting will just be like, free agency where, agents will present their college players to the highest bidder, which is okay. That's fine for them if that's the way it's going to be. This is brought to you by Seawells, which we do recommend, of course, for your daily luncheon buffet. We've come to the end of the week. I was talking to them yesterday about Roast Beef Friday. As I was told by Cal Sewell, there was never a true Roast Beef Friday. That was just a figment of my imagination. As they move it around, what do we have tomorrow, Pat?
So tomorrow has me a little intrigued, Corn. You have your Southern fried chicken, per usual, and then spaghetti with meatballs and fried flounder. What has me intrigued is, you think if I take the fried chicken and put the spaghetti on top, I can essentially make my own chicken parmesan, or is that just too out there?
That's very creative on your part. Are you much of a cook? Is that something you like to do?
Well, I like to try. I don't know if I'd necessarily say I'm very good at it, but
yeah.
What about you?
I prefer to eat. I mean, if I have to cook, I cook.
Well, there's lots to eat at Seawells, Corn.
I prefer the eating side of that arrangement. Yeah, no doubt about it. Get out there and check it out tomorrow. Seawells in Columbia, right across from the state fairgrounds. It's 11 to 2 with their daily luncheon buffet. And seriously, folks, it is outstanding. We would not mislead you here on Sports Talk and tell you otherwise. And then after you have a great lunch, get in your car, drive down to the beach, and call Jimmy Smith and have him take care of you and put you up in a great location down here at Pauley's or Litchfield or Garden City or wherever else that their long arms reach. As I look around here inside James Smith Realty's beautiful office here in Pauley's Island, I see maps and maps and maps of many parcels of land around the Grand Strand. And if you're looking for, maybe you want to buy some property, not just stay for a few days or a week or so or a month. say you want to buy some property, Jimmy and his folks can certainly take care of that as well. He's got a staff of well over 20 people. They are veterans in the real estate business here along the Grand Strand, and they will do whatever is necessary to get you what you are looking for. Let me give you the phone number. It's 843-237-4246, 843-237-4246. Give them a call tomorrow. I would tell you to call Jimmy tonight, but he's trying to find the lady. I almost said ladies, but he's trying to find the USC women's basketball game on television. He's trying to get it to stream. And I told him by the time he gets it on the screen, it's going to be over. Jimmy is 39-21 at halftime. So you're not missing any drama. You're not missing any drama. Cook's got 12. The Gamecocks are shooting 40%, and they're out rebounding Auburn 30-15, and in the paint, outscoring them 20-12. And they've only turned it over one time. Auburn's turned it over 3 times. As for Boston, she has 7 points and 9 rebounds, so she's in good shape to get another double-double tomorrow. Now on to recruiting. So South Carolina's new tight ends coach, Jody Wright, sent out a couple of offers Wednesday to prospects at his position. One went to Josh Palmer, 6'5", 215 of Selma, Alabama. The other to Reed McKeska, 6'6", 230, Houston, Texas. McKeska was in contact in recent weeks with USC recruiter Pete Limbo, who did the background work until Wright was hired last week. McKeska said they started talking, he and Limbo, a couple of weeks ago, was told to be patient. Then they hired Wright. Everybody loved his film. The rest of the staff loved the film, and so they offered. He said he's very excited about it. He's got the Gamecocks like one of his top schools right now. He's got them up there with the likes of Clemson, Florida, Michigan State, Baylor, Iowa State, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. He says he's been a big fan of South Carolina for a while because he was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, and still has family in the Carolina area. Last season, he had 24 receptions, 300 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He's that new hybrid version of the tight end who can play all over. He can play attached. He can split out. He can be an H-back. He says he's very athletic, and he can just really do it all from the tight end position. Plans to visit USC in March or early April. He is going to Clemson March 5th. The Tigers haven't offered, but there appears to be strong enough interest between him and tight ends coach Kyle Richardson that something like that could happen on his visit. McKeska said they have a great relationship, been talking to them for about a month. He texts Richardson almost every day, and they're really excited to get him up there. And they see him as being very versatile, and he could play anywhere in their offense. They love his aggression, his athleticism. As for Clemson, he says it's a team culture, a winning culture, great school, great location, great fan base. Nothing to not like about Clemson, he said. Also in March, McKeska plans to visit Florida, Tennessee, and Ole Miss, which offered him last night. In January, he went to Michigan State, Michigan, Baylor, and TCU. Some other offers are Coastal Carolina, Utah, Duke, Rice, Northwestern, UConn, Missouri, Kansas, Tennessee, Virginia, and Iowa State. Clemson missed out on an offensive tackle target today when Luke Montgomery announced his commitment to Ohio State. He's out of Findlay, Ohio. Clemson was in on him really hard. He came down to visit a couple of times. But, things started to turn, Ohio State being the home school, and they put the big push on him. And that's where he is headed. Big pickup there for Ohio State. Xavier McLeod from Camden, who is one of the top prospects in the state, tells us that he's going to go to Alabama on March the 5th. And that's the only thing he's got set up right now. He's trying to get to Oklahoma as well in March and some other places too. Not sure yet if he's going to get to South Carolina or Clemson at some point. Feel like he will at some point in time, but nothing there yet. Safety Brandon Siss from Lakewood, offered by Central Michigan, and he continues to pick up those mid-major type offers for him. He's compiling a nice list. USC offered 2024 receiver Nye Carr Moultrie, Georgia. Old Dominion offered Wren safety Trevon West. Oceanside Collegiate tight end linebacker Carson Arnold committed to the Citadel. USC target quarterback R.J. Johnson was offered by Georgia Southern. Several other USC targets getting other offers. JUCO defensive tackle Elijah Davis, who's out of Wagner-Sally, offered by Miami. Running back Jalen Johnson offered by East Carolina. Offensive tackle Wilkin Formby offered by Penn State. Running back Dalen Smothers offered by Miami. USC and Clemson target. Elias Lennon was offered by Florida State and Auburn. I mentioned Camden defensive tackle Xavier McLeod. He was offered by Arkansas. USC target defensive tackle Stephilian Green of Rome, Georgia was offered by LSU. Clemson target running back Richard Young, re-offered by LSU. He was also offered by Syracuse. And Clemson target offensive tackle Sam Pendleton offered by Syracuse. Wide receiver Chris Culliver plans to visit Clemson March 5th. Wide receiver Christian Hamilton plans to visit Clemson March 5th and USC April 16th for their spring game. USC target safety Jeremiah Anglin was offered by Florida. And USC in basketball offered 6'7" Cohen Carr, Legacy Charter in Greenville. He is a native of Atlanta. He's in the 2023 class. That's a program where South Carolina's had some success recruiting players in recent years. All right, there you go, my friends, with the recruiting report for tonight. Remember to check it out regularly here on Sports Talk. We bring you recruiting every night. It's also available on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. And also a reminder, everything we do on Sports Talk, the full program, various elements, all goes into a podcast for you, and we house our podcasts 3 different locations. You can find them at SoundCloud for one location, and then there is also Spotify for another location, and then we also have them available for you at Apple Podcasts, okay? So just look for, do the search. If you don't have it already bookmarked, do the search for Sports Talk Media Network, and it'll take you to our podcast, and you can listen to the show in its entirety or various elements of the show. We hit a break here on Sports Talk, and we'll come back with our final minutes. We'll update the opening round of the Genesis Invitational out in beautiful Pacific Palisades, California. See if we have anybody of local note leading. No, but Jordan Spieth had a good day. Scotty Scheffler had a good day. There's Max Homa again. He's off to a great start this season. We'll update the leaderboards for you. Update basketball. Have a few other things to talk about. If you want to join us, we got time for calls too. We'll be back.
Score a touchdown with Founders Federal Credit Union. With services like Founders Online and the Founders app, you'll enjoy all the perks of a big bank with local personalized service. Not a member? Joining Founders Federal Credit Union is easy. Visit relaxjoinfounders.com or one of our 37 convenient locations to see if you qualify for membership. Relax with Founders. Terms and conditions apply. Founders Federal Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
We're with Major Billy Downer of DNR Major. It's always a good time for folks to remember to get those licenses renewed.
Doesn't matter what time of the year, it's always a season in, whether it's fishing or hunting. Make sure to check your licenses, make sure they're up to date. If you need a hunting or fishing license, you may go to www.dnr.sc.gov to purchase your license online or to any local licensed vendor in your local area.
And don't forget to join us for SC Wild from DNR with Major Billy Downer on Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Touchstone Energy Cooperative members save more on electricity, and members save more on insurance, groceries, healthcare, restaurants, travel, concerts, and sporting events through Co-op Connections. Touchstone Energy is an alliance of the member-owned electric cooperatives, and as a member, the power is yours. Experience the power of co-op membership with Touchstone Energy and find out how much you can save on electricity and a whole lot more at touchstoneenergy.com.
Okay, we're back on Sports Talk. USC opens its baseball season tomorrow. Gamecocks home for a 3-game set against UNC Greensboro. Here is a little bit from USC baseball coach Mark Kingston as he heads into another season directing the Gamecocks.
From the end of last season to now, what's the biggest difference about your team offensively? Obviously, a lot of new players, but in terms of profile of your team offensively, what's the biggest difference that we'll start to notice?
I think you'll see a little more athleticism. I think you'll see more left-handed options. I think you'll see guys in our lineup that will strike out. We'll probably strike out less than we did last year, both because our current guys are older and more experienced, because we brought in some guys that have track records of not striking out. 2 of our transfers came in, struck out in the 20s. So I think those are the things you'll see most. I think the strikeouts will go down, hopefully. I think you'll see more left-right balance, and I think you'll see some more athleticism.
Colin?
Yeah, Mark, you obviously had Brady anchor the leadoff spot for you last year. Now that you're getting into the season, who are some of the candidates you might look at to hit first in that order, and what kind of qualities are you looking for there?
Yeah, I'd say early in the season, you're probably looking at Belk and maybe Braswell in that 1-2, 2-1 category. Again, a lot of it we're just going to have to run them out there, see what it looks like, and then make adjustments if need be. But I'd say those are the 2 guys right now that you're looking at as table setters for the big guys.
And speaking of Braswell, just what have you seen from him? Obviously, a pretty highly touted freshman coming in. What have you seen from him through the first couple weeks of this?
Yeah, he's given us every indication that he can handle the shortstop job as a freshman. He has the skills. He has the confidence. He's not going to back down from anybody. And so all indications are that he can man that position and we'll get really good production offensively and defensively. So, again, he's got to go out there and prove it. But every indication so far has been that he can handle it.
John?
Seitler and Brent Bell could kind of bounce back and forth between left field and first base. What goes into that decision in terms of where those guys play? What are maybe some of the strengths of each guy at each spot?
Yeah, good question. They both can do either. So the key is figure out, okay, what's the best combination of the 2? How do they best complement each other? So when we were looking at it, we kind of looked at their skill set, and Belk has a little bit more range in the outfield. Throwing wise, it's close, but Belk is going to be able to make harder, stronger throws more often because Seitler is a pitcher and you want to protect his arm a little bit. Seitler is a bigger target and he's a left-handed thrower, which is an advantage at first base. So the more we looked at how they complement each other, we just thought when they're both out there, the better combination is Belk and left and Seitler at first for those reasons. And when Seitler pitches, Belk will most likely come into play first base, which would open up a spot in the outfield. So a lot of moving pieces, and it's all about how do they complement each other.
Mike Uva?
Mark, more of a broader question. I mean, obviously, that third season, you get cut short because of COVID, and you're able to go on a deep run last season. But what have you learned just coaching at South Carolina the last couple of years, and what have you maybe tweaked since maybe that first year or first 2 years in comparison to now as you head into this season?
You know, I would say just every year I'm here, I think there's a bigger need for the head coach to make sure he's very stable, very consistent, very even keeled, because there's going to be ups and downs. When you play in the SEC, there's going to be some great moments. There's going to be some low moments just because of the competition you're playing, and with our schedule, there's going to be those moments. So I think a team, I think guys these days in 2022, I think it's very important that the head coach of a team, of an organization, remains as consistent and even keeled and stable as possible. I think it's important for a team to know the head coach is going to be just about the same guy every single day. Obviously, there's a little bit of, ups and downs with that. But for the most part, I just, with everything that goes into being at South Carolina, with the attention, with the fan base, with the competition, I think it's really important for a head coach here to just be very stable and consistent. And it's one thing I think I'm continuing to evolve in, and I think the team will benefit from that.
There you go, Mark Kingston, as he met with the media earlier today to preview the start of the upcoming season at South Carolina. 39-21, USC Women over Auburn. One more check of the scoreboard. South Alabama has taken a 31-28 lead on Coastal at the half. James Madison leading at the College of Charleston 34-28 at the half as well. We go back to your phone calls. It's Stephen in Columbia with us next. Stephen, welcome in. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Couldn't be better.
Awesome, man. I would just like to talk about Zion Williamson thing.
Yep.
I just want to say that I think it's better, personally, that he went to Duke, because he's had a bunch of issues, like with financial stuff. He signed some endorsement deals and then went back on them. I think that something would have happened if he would have went to Clemson, and it would have been everything that's on Duke. And I think something is gonna happen to Duke. Personally, I think they should take Nil away from the whole school for like a year or two, just, to get the message across to other places that try and cheat. I mean, what do you think about that?
You said take what away?
Take away Nil. Take Nil.
Oh, take Nil away.
Likeness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that would be the best for it,
I don't know that they have the power to do that. I don't know what they can do. I don't know what power they have anymore. Can they punish any program for anything, I mean, the best thing you can do is say, you know what, you're ineligible for the NCAA tournament for the next 2-3 years. That's where you would hurt Duke the most when it comes to basketball. No NCAA tournament.
Well, you probably know the rules better than I do, and that does sound like a good one, because you're going to lose some good players if they can't make the tournament,
Oh yeah, I think that would be if you're going to hit them, that would hit that program really hard if you put them on that kind of a probation. But I don't know the NCAA has a stomach to do anything anymore to anybody about anything.
Even if they don't do anything, it's going to be worse, because all the fans are going to know. I mean, who's to say how long they've been doing it for, So if they don't punish them, in my opinion, it'll be worse for their fans, because, I mean, what can they literally say,
But do the fans care? Do they really, really care anymore if a player got paid $10,000 or $100,000 or his family got put up in a mansion while he was there? I mean, do the fans really care anymore? I think they used to. I don't think they care anymore.
You may be right, but I think some North Carolina fans might push that one,
Well, listen,
I know I would if I was a North Carolina fan.
Yeah, but you better not throw rocks. You live in a glass house. North Carolina, they're on a slippery slope as well. They shouldn't be pointing fingers, Hey, thank you very much.
Oh, man.
Appreciate your phone call. Good hearing from you. All right, approaching the end of the show. Wanted to update the golf from out in California. Joaquin Niemann is at 63. Scotty Scheffler is at 66. Jordan Spieth is also in at 66. Cameron Young, Max Homa, they're all in at 66. That's the top of the leaderboard. CT Pan is at 67. Colin Morikawa and Jason Kokrak, 67 as well. As far as others that we follow, Justin Thomas, 4 under. Adam Scott's 3. Former Gamecock Matthew Neesmith is 2 under, 69. John Rahm's at 2. Former Tiger Doc Redmond's at 2. Matt Kuchar is at 2 under. Roy McIlroy's at 2 under. Will Zalatoris is on the course at 2 under. Bubba, 1 under, 70. Sergio's even. Ricky Fowler's even. Brooks Koepka's even. Russell Henley at 1 over. Dustin Johnson, 2 over, 73. Kyle Stanley +2. Patrick Reed +5. Not encouraging news, if you saw it yesterday, from Tiger Woods. Not encouraging news about his health right now. This is an event he hosts, and he's apparently still far away in his recovery from the injury he suffered in the traffic accident, far away from getting back into competitive golf. Pat, what you got? Super quick. What you got?
One other quick note regarding golf. You may not have seen Oakland Hills Country Club today. Devastating fire burned down, looked like total destruction of their clubhouse today. And that is the very nice course, the suburbs of Detroit that has hosted many, many Ryder Cups as well as major championships.
Oh, my.
Thankfully,
I
nobody
had not
was
seen
hurt.
that. Yeah, really. Thank you for telling me that. Did not realize that was the case. Thanks to Jimmy Smith. He's everything we brag about him, okay? Take my word for it. You need help down here at the beach, lodging, purchasing, James Smith Realty. We'll see you tomorrow night from the Coaches Clinic. Have a great night. Thank you, Pat. See you tomorrow.
Someone will be right